everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Joy of Being for busy working mums and women in business and beyond who are seeking to unplug from their worries and overwhelm to light up with insight and joy. I, your host, mum, and effortless lifestyle coach Marina Pearson, talk to transformational professionals, business owners, and creatives about what it really takes to have a business and life you can truly enjoy. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. And if you would like a more personalized touch to live a stress-free life, then why not find out more about the Joy of Being retreat, an intimate 4-day profound experience at a luxury venue in Javier, Spain, where you get to experience your inner calm and peace of mind by slowing down and making space. To find out more, email me at marina@marinapearson.com with Joy of Being Retreat in the title. And so on today's show, I have the infamous Dave Kibby, who's a specialist in personal transformation. For the last 5 years, he has run his own boutique coaching, consulting, and training company, helping individuals and organizations with elegant change to achieve real difference in their worlds. Nowadays, the methodology, in inverted commas, for his work is a simple understanding of what really makes us tick. The true nature of our experience. Once people get a glimmer of why they do what they do, they simply never look back, and changes they wanted either vanish completely or give way to possibilities that they never imagined possible. And what I love about Dave is his capacity to hit the nail on the head and say things that others wouldn't. You know, you can find him on LinkedIn writing very curt, short messages around where he is today in terms of what he's up to and thinking. And it always his message always drives something really powerful home. And what we spoke about on this call today was beyond what I have seen in my understanding of who we are and what we think we are. So we talked about this misunderstanding of who we think we are as opposed to actually who we are. So why would that make any difference to you? Well, what I really understood from the conversation was that when we understand who we really are as opposed to who we think we are, this has huge implications in terms of your day-to-day well-being. In other words, it reduces the anxiety, the stress, the struggles, the overwhelm, and inevitably has you living a life with much more joy and love. So if you're curious about what he has to say and you want to know more, then come and join us today on this quite fascinating and awe-inspiring and insightful conversation. So welcome everybody to this week's episode of The Joy of Being. And today I have the infamous Kiki and, interesting. Well, interesting is such a generic word, but amazing Dave Kibby. I've known Dave now for, I don't know, maybe 5 years, maybe something along those lines. And I brought him on today's show because I've just been really loving his posts on social media around personal development in general, our identity. And I always, he always brings in a really fresh way of viewing our experience and where it can take us and so forth. And today I really wanted to have a conversation with him because I know that he will once again have an interesting perspective on it. So welcome, Dave. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks, Marina. Thank you.
So I know that you were on a rant before we actually started recording this. So I'd love you to start there, really.
I don't know if it was a rant. I think it was just, we could pretend it was a rant because that's kind of fun, isn't it? It was a confusion thing, really. And I know that experience can be confusing for all of us. And It's really funny actually, because I'm even dodging the word human experience, because I hear people talking about, oh, it's the human experience, the human experience. I'm like, yeah, you want to check that out. That needs to be up for grabs, really, because like I tell you, most of the day you won't even know you're human, right? You'll know.
That's interesting. So, what do you mean by this? I mean, anybody that's listening to this podcast.
Okay, so yeah, no, yeah, that's right. So now I just sound like some rambling loon. So okay, so let's take something, you know, like quite serious in the world currently. If I'm writing about it and it's going out tomorrow, it's a piece on mental health. And you know, don't get me wrong, I know there are a huge amount of people struggling and suffering. I do. So like I want to kind of put that frame out first, or we could talk about obesity. We could put any of those things in the bracket of challenges of the human race currently. Human race. We could put any of those things out currently that are you know, appearing to be real problems in the world, and we could frame any of them and look at any of them. But the problem is that in our understanding of experience of what's going on, we've made some big presuppositions. And they're presuppositions that mostly in the mainstream go unnoticed, and it's left to like rambling, giggling loons like myself and others to challenge it, right? Because we've said that, you know, there is a major league issue with mental health, and there is. Don't get me wrong. In one way of looking at it, there absolutely is. But we've overlooked the fact that what seems to correspond to this massive problem is also a massive amount of people trying to help with it. We've overlooked that. It's the same with obesity, because originally we were going to talk a little bit about weight loss, weren't we? And my inverted commas weight loss journey, you know, and it's the same thing. Like so we got an obesity issue like never before on the planet. And yet there are more solutions, more experts, more gurus, more coaches, more methodologies, more ways than ever before. And like for those people who've got, you know, are kind of like got a really good bit of critical thinking going on. You know, everybody wants to get rid of the critical voice in their head. I'm like, no, you really don't want to do that. It's brilliant. It's going to serve you so well. It's the doubter. you want to fuel that doubter, because it's going to help you rumble some of this stuff that really needs to be rumbled.
When you say this stuff, what do you mean?
Okay. So like the slightly overlooked issue that all these things are getting worse, and yet there's more solutions and cures on offer.
Interesting. Okay. And do you know this? Have you seen the stats for that?
I can't quote them, but I have seen some statistics. Yeah, definitely. But again, I would say to people, please don't pay much attention to statistics, and please don't even pay much attention to what I'm saying. I want you to go and look at your own experience. So if anybody takes anything from this today, check out your own experience. Like check out your experience of living. Don't necessarily buy into mine, but because I buy into almost no one's, so not even my own, you know, because it will shift continually. This inquiry is a continual shift and exploration. So let's try and make this coherent for people. So we've got some major challenges as a perceived race. I'm even going to throw that in right now. As a perceived human race, as an apparent set of beings, we've got some major challenges going on. Yet we've also got all of these apparent solutions running at the same time. And I think that is overlooked. And I'm going to be pointing specifically at one of those tomorrow in tomorrow's article, which is on mental health. And what I'm going to be pointing to or suggesting for people to look at themselves is that I'm going to suggest that part of the challenge is that all these solutions are predicated on the same thing, and that indirectly and innocently, and it's completely innocent, it is, but indirectly and innocently, it's compounding the problem. because it's trying to hold in place the fundamental misunderstanding that is undermining the whole thing. That's what I'm pointing at.
So this understanding that's undermining the whole thing, what is that, Dave?
Well, it's difficult. In a way I want to answer, and in a way I don't, because I want people to look at their own experience and go, okay, is this rambling? Is this nonsense? Or has this guy twigged something for me? Can I see something different about experience? So let me take you back to one of the first glitches in the matrix that I noticed. Right? I kind of knew it was a glitch in the matrix previously, but I didn't, because I think people might relate to this.
Are you going to take us down the rabbit hole? Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. So about 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, I can't remember quite, but I was in an employed role in those days, not like now, and I'd been to a meeting, and it was one of those days where I'm sure people relate to this. There's just some days where you just feel like the entire world is going your way. It's almost like you can't put a foot wrong. Yeah. Do you know what I mean by that? It's sort of like, tra-la, tra-lee, everything is marvelous. Da, da, da. I come out of a meeting and it was all glory. And, oh, my team, wonderful. Isn't life amazing? Go me, all that stuff. And I went in just to go to the loo. And it was like, I've made it. And then the next day, it was almost at the same time of day, in a similar meeting, because it wasn't a huge company with very, so similar bodies around there. And I came out of the meeting, and like in my head, it's like, oh, this is terrible, idiots. I don't know what I'm doing. This is a nightmare. I don't want to be involved in this. What's wrong with you? How did I ever get involved in that? Why did I not leave? Why did I leave teaching and abandon music and children? Oh, what a waster I am, blah, 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 all that, right? And I turned literally and I put my hand on the door, and it was like literally my world froze for a second, because I remembered the day before. And like, whoa, hang on. Yesterday, this was the best thing since sliced bread. Today, this is the worst thing since sliced bread. Whoa, this doesn't make any sense. So I didn't know I had a model of how the world worked. It was hidden from me that I had a methodology or an understanding or some unconscious beliefs or whatever about how the world worked, how my experience of what we call world worked. I had no idea I had that until that point. And it became apparent to me that I'd been acting on some data, living, that was incorrect. And what I'd been acting on was get the right circumstances, be happy. That was what was underlying it. Okay. And so for quite a few years, my inquiry, my curiosity, my critic became based around that. About well, what drives happiness? What is behind that? If it isn't things and stuff, so what is it? Right? But I was missing the bigger question, and that's where a lot of like spiritually based stuff, practice, etc., is now. They're still locked in that understanding the I think people call it like the thought feeling connection and all of that, and what makes us function. But they're missing something.
For those people that are listening to this, Dave, who don't know about the thought-feeling connection.
Okay, cool.
Because it may well be that they're listening to this podcast for the first time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's chronically unhelpful, isn't it? Excellent. So, Start there. Well, with the chronically unhelpful. Yeah, no, brilliant. So, the explanation that was given was when somebody tried to help me understand what was going on. I was confused, basically. Believe it or not, this is clearer. It might not sound clearer to somebody listening for the first time, but this is what clarity sounds like. It sounds confusing, doesn't it? It often is. So, but I was now confused about how the world was working. And so what someone offered up to me was, okay, well, your experience doesn't come from the circumstance in the moment. It comes from thought in the moment. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I can see that. That makes some sense. The thought would have changed. And so experience changed. And so for a long time, I pursued that. But because the critic wouldn't shut off, you see, the forensic hidden scientist in the back of the mind wouldn't go away. I'm still like, now there's something missing here. This isn't making sense.
So just to recap,
yeah,
it feels like, well, what I've heard so far is that at the beginning, you thought that your feelings were coming from your circumstances, and you had, if I have this, then I will feel joyful or happy.
Yeah.
The next sort of inquiry for you was, well, hang on a minute, that may not work that way, because one day I feel okay, and the next day nothing's really changed, but my experience of that thing is totally different. So then the next inquiry you went on was, well, what does create my experience? Oh, there's a thought-feeling connection. These are the two things that come together. When I feel crap, it's because I'm thinking crap. Or if I feel down, it's because I'm thinking down.
Yeah.
But what I'm now hearing is that, so what I've heard is that even including me, may have got stuck in that's how it works. This is how we're going to help people and how we're going to support them. But what you're now saying is that you've gone into the next inquiry, which is now what you're going to share. Yeah,
that's really clear, actually. Well done. We should change roles. That would be good. So there were more unanswered questions, a little bit like the one that I posed at the beginning about mental health or about obesity, because I know a lot of people are trying to help other people in the way that you described, in the thought feeling way. But I spotted a wrinkle. I spotted a wrinkle in that, right? Because go back to what I said originally. It's getting worse, and yet there's more people helping. And it suddenly started to dawn on me. Hang on. There's a bigger misunderstanding here than even those group of people are either pointing out, or I'm missing the point, or something. There's a wrinkle in this, and it started to dawn on me that, having started to study what's called direct inquiry or non-duality, having previously studied the three principles, it started to dawn on me that what a lot of the time I would call me or I, in fact, wasn't there all of the time. So if you've just switched this on, or even just started listening at this point, now it starts to get really cookie. Right? I noticed that for quite a significant part of the day, I'm not around. What I would call me, which would normally be referred to as the body or the mind, i.e. the thoughts and feelings, just isn't there. Right now, everyone who's listening to this knows this is true.
So can I just clarify something?
Go ahead.
So when you say that your thought and feelings aren't there, what do you mean? Where have they gone? Have they shut down? Have you given them to someone else?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've put them in a left luggage locker. Right. So I just want to go back a bit, because I think there's something really cool for people here to see. Right. Everybody who's listened to this at some point will have had an experience, many experiences, to be honest with you, of having got lost in something, got lost reading a book, got lost in driving. You know that thing when you drive and you go around the M25 or something, and you kind of come to and you go, how did I get here? Who the hell was driving the car? And you freak, don't you, for a second? You had that?
Yeah, I've been known to put keys in the fridge.
Yeah, it's like, what the, whoa, hang on. Now, mostly we disregard those things. Like, God, it's old age, or it's this, or it's that, or, it's like I had one too many chilies in my curry last night or something. We don't pay any attention to it. But I pay attention to stuff like that. And so I started to notice there was a lot of these things where there was an apparent absence of what, if you listened to me talking, I would be describing as me or I, i.e. the body and the mind. So I can remember when I was training for the London Marathon, there were various times when I was running, and this can sound crazy, but runners will know this, musicians will know this, artists will know this, everyone will know this. The body vanished.
They call that the zone, don't they?
Yeah. And everybody wants to get there, right? Flow, zone, whatever. But literally, there was nobody there. And I'm like, oh, hang on. That's pointing me to something. And not until relatively recently did I start to twig what it was pointing me to. And it dawned on me, particularly in the context of mental health. And I'm really sensitive about this to somebody who's listening to this for the first time. But I think it has to be said. It suddenly hit me that there were more people than ever trying to help more people than ever. I'm like, well, hang on, there's a commonality here. Right? Because I'd spotted that the peopleness or the person was temporary. It's just not there all the time. There will be so many times in the day when you don't know you're a person, let alone a marina or a mom or an entrepreneur, whatever. You don't know that. But there is still a knowing there. So you know something, but you don't know you're a people or a person anymore. And it hit me that by holding this notion of person in place, we're completely innocently holding mental dis-ease in place, because mental dis-ease can only occur at the level of person. At the level of awareness, it's not there. Which is why even people who have significant struggles with mental health cannot report that they have it 100% of the time.
So you're saying we're living in two worlds?
Appear to be. No, but yes. Yes. It's an apparent duality of two apparent worlds. Yes. But it's only apparent. So there is an apparent Dave, there is an apparent Marina, and there is what we're doing here in an apparent world, but it's only an apparent world. But the reason this can be so challenging is because it flies completely in the opposite direction of pretty much all of our conditioning, what we're taught, what our gurus, experts, etc. are telling us. You know, there are people who are telling us that there's an us and it's solid and you can work for things and there's a superpower behind you and you can rely on it, but that's still not quite true. It doesn't quite work like that. So using that as an expandable theory for success in the world, because that's what's being sold, success in the world, how to be more, do more, have more, that's still what's on offer. That's still what's being flogged and sold. It isn't true. Because if it was, then there'd be a lot more people able to do it. So it's clear from the results. You need to look at the results. You need to look critically at the data. You need to look at what's going on. And that's why I say to people, you know, if this stimulates someone to look at experience, then I'm all good. Don't try and hold on to the theory or whatever of what I'm saying. Look at your experience and question. And I saw as clear as day, and I've seen other things even more clearly, that that what I'm pointing at is that by innocently trying to solve these people problems, we're holding them in place, because people is transitory. So being a person comes and goes. But because we've all been conditioned and brought up to believe that it starts at the level of body, because we talk about birth and death and all the normal stuff of life, we're so conditioned to say it begins from here. Like, I know people can't see, but on the camera, I'm talking to Marina. I'm pointing at me, at the body that knows itself as Dave. Because we think it starts at that point, we work as if that's solid and that's true. Now, what I'm saying is that body vanishes from time to time. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that they can forget they've got a body. They can forget they've got thoughts and feelings. It's as if it's absent. Some people call it the stateless state, or flow, or zone. So if we know that this experience of body and mind comes and goes, that makes it transitory, impermanent. How can you change something that's impermanent? So we're now into a world where people are claiming that you can touch up and color a rainbow. Like, good luck with that. Now, so a rainbow is something that appears as a combination of light and water.
So what comes to mind, it's almost like attempting to catch shadows.
Mm. Yeah, that would be another good way of looking at it.
Like seeing a shadow on the wall and attempting to like catch it, but it moves every time. You can't catch it. You never.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly. That's a lovely example. Or another one would be like, trying to pick up the rainbow in a puddle where there's some oil or petrol or whatever on the floor. So it appears that those things are there, but they're not actually there. You can't bottle one or do anything with it. So it appears. Oh gosh, it appears. Of course it does. Like, we're all in the same boat. It appears that there is something solid and real, a character, a person that we can base our theories and our knowledge around, apart from the fact that there isn't. And we all know that because it comes and goes within experience. So experience is consistent, or some people might say awareness or consciousness is consistent, but the presence of this person isn't.
So a couple of questions come to mind.
Yeah.
How does that help someone? Or is that not even the question?
Yeah, you see, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, isn't that interesting, right?
Isn't that interesting? Because of course, our habitual conditioned thinking will go, yeah, that's all very well, strange man on the podcast. But what about all the people are suffering? So we go back to that person thinking. What about the people that are suffering? So it's like, oh, whoa, hang on, come back, stay with me.
Okay, so great. What are the implications of there not being a person?
Well, other than the obliteration of all suffering within an instant, I guess nothing particularly significant, So
that was the question.
Right? But I know this can sound crazy. I'm there, right? It sounded crazy when it's gone round in my pretend head for a while as well. But think about it for a second, right? If what I'm suggesting, and this is what I'm saying to people, just look at it. That's all I'm looking for. Look at it, because it's clear with what we've got going on. One of the questions I ask clients when I'm working with them, and they're battling with me. Most people will battle this, right? I battled it because it's so radical to how we are conditioned to see the world. It just sounds mad. But there are enough people who will go with some madness for a while to critically examine it. Now, if what I'm suggesting is true, it's phenomenally good news. First of all, because it actually matches to our experience, which is rather handy. And secondly, because of the implications and the simplicity of the implications. Now, so here's the paradox. The paradox is to get to where you want to be, which is the end of suffering. You've got to be willing to look at the end of that which claims suffering. Now, there's the paradox. So I'll say that again. So to get to where people want to be, the end of suffering, you've got to be prepared to look at the end of that which claims it can suffer.
So what I heard in that is that we need to look at, or I don't know, that which looks.
go with we, it's all good.
that which has the notion that there is an existence of others. To look at actually what is creating, as opposed to the end outcome, as in suffering, as opposed to what is doing the suffering.
Yeah, question what is doing the suffering. You're right at the end there.
As opposed to what can we do about the suffering? Yes.
Now you've got it right. You're on it. Okay, that's key. That's key for people to see because the personal development world, and as far as I can see, and again, it's only my experience, predominantly the mental health world, are predicated on what can we do about the suffering. No one's questioning earlier than that.
So I liken it to, so even kind of bringing it down to a metaphor or an experience that I've just been through, which is the energy. So, the last 5 years, I've had energy come in and out. I was pretty exhausted after having my son. So I could feel in my body that my energy was all over the place. I was knackered basically all the time, most of the time. And over this last year, I've gone into a huge inquiry as to what was creating that. And so I start the journey going, I want to do something about my energy. But what I've come down to on a genetic level is what is creating that. So I've found out that I've got mutated genes that don't help with detox, for example, but going all the way back there. So no, that's not what you're pointing to.
No, you're still at the level of the body, right? The reason that you were tired is because you're trying to hold in place a dream. So the dream, you got it?
Mm-hmm.
So the dream is that there's a solid thing called a marina, the evidence being a body and a mind that can be tired following a birth, etc., etc., etc. That's the dream. Now, trying to hold that in place. Now, this is why this is so key to inquire about and to see. This is why, on the level of someone who's really, really suffering and struggling from a mental health point of view, is because they're trying to hold on to that shadow, as you called it, so intensely, and that's exhausting. It's that's exhausting. Mm. It's trying to hold something that's impermanent in place, right? So another quick example. If someone wants to know, well, that sounds crazy, you can do a physical example. All right, hold your hand out and hold a really heavy pile of books. Now, I guarantee at some point your arm will start to tire, as if there are books are there. Like even just doing it, playing now for a few seconds, I'm watching my arm go down. There's nothing there, but my arm's getting tired. Just the act of holding it out. So trying to suspend something that isn't there is tiring. Now, I'm saying take that to a different place. But our conditioning and what we know and what's in society, etc., will take you to the solutions that you went to. Okay, let's look at this, whatever. But remember that your experience of body isn't permanent. Body comes and goes, comes and goes. Now, that sounds mad. To a lot of people, that may well sound like I'm off the deep end. I get it. I do. But again, go back to your experience. Don't take what I'm saying. Go back to your experience. Quiz it. If you can, like for someone who is struggling, and I'm really conscious of that, as you can tell, right? I'm sensitive to that, or you know, that the ego is sensitive to that without a doubt, because I know that's horrible. But if you can just get a glimmer that first of all, that suffering isn't permanent, right? If you can confirm that it isn't permanent. And so secondly, that which claims it isn't permanent. Now that's the gold. If you can see that, then you're really, really on the track home. You really are. I cannot stress that enough. If you can really see the impermanence of the one who claims to be that which is suffering, you are so on the way home as to be untrue. Now, that is such incredible news. Like, unbelievably good news.
Yeah, because that would suggest there's nothing to do, as in there's nothing to really solve or help, or that actually all suffering is impermanent, but the thing doing the suffering is impermanent too. So
no, it's the other way around. And we've got to be key about this for the people this twigs or whatever. It's that the one who claims to suffer is impermanent. That's the key piece. Forget about the suffering. Yeah. That'll send people to where we are currently. Enough solutions to sink a ship. Growing challenge. Right. Everybody knows that statistically. There are more people than ever helping, people helping, right? There is more problem than ever. Those two are, what I'm purporting is those two are linked, because their commonality is that they're trying to hold this image, this mirage, this sense of person in place. You've just verified in your own experience. You're trying to hold an image of Marina in place, and you found that was exhausting. Now, what happens is that temporarily that will blip out, but your habit will go, I found it because it's in genetics, or it's something. You'll go back to the body. And what I'm saying is, no, whoa, come back to the level of experience. The body rises and falls within experience, within you, within who you really are. Body rises and falls. Thought, feeling rises, falls. In fact, entire world rises, falls, if we really want to go all the way.
So what does it mean by who you really are? Because this gets bandied around so often. And I'm curious about what you think about that. And anybody that's listening, if you've not really heard any sort of spiritual banter, this is definitely something that I hear a lot, which is
spiritual banter. I like that.
Who you really are. And it's like, well, okay, what is that? Because it's banded around, and I'm not even sure if that's even useful, or it just gets banded around. So I'm curious about what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, no, completely. And like, I'm reticent to give an answer, because what can happen is that we'll sound like an object, and somebody go, so I'll say, for example, it's consciousness. That's what doesn't go. Consciousness, and everything is made of consciousness. This is consciousness, right here, right now. This is consciousness. Everything's made of consciousness. I'm made of consciousness. You're made of consciousness. Not my consciousness, your consciousness. That's a misunderstanding. That's a red herring. Yeah, that's another bandied around spiritual practicey thing. Oh, I'm a conscious being. No. Other way around. Consciousness gives rise to being so it can know world. It's that way around, not the other way around. Like the ego, the sense of separate self, loves the idea of becoming more conscious. Oh, I'm just so much more conscious than everybody else. All that kind of jive. You see plenty of that, right? Wrong way around. Other way around. Single consciousness. There's just consciousness. In fact, all there is consciousness. That's it. This apparent, or what looks apparent, is just consciousness. That's what it's made of.
What are we?
Well, it's a great question. I think, gosh, we've covered so much in this already. I think that makes a beautiful inquiry for those people who are inclined to make that inquiry. I mean, the inquiry I use with people, I go with what are we? I use the inquiry, who am I? That's a good one, because I guarantee when you're in difficulty and you go, oh, hang on, who am I? You're going to point to the body like it's permanent. But remember, it comes and goes within experience. Oh, hang on then. So if that comes and goes, like my water in my bottle I'm holding up comes and goes, or something knows that. Look at that. Look at that which remains. Look at that which has always remained. This body has been a whole variety of ages. There's nothing.
Sizes.
Yeah, no, exactly. And sizes, particularly. There's nothing much true about this body that was true even like I don't know, what is it? How often does the body regenerate or whatever? Somebody clever will tell you, won't they, at a cellular level? So this body isn't probably even the same than it was a few months or weeks ago. So trying to claim it's permanent is just mad. It's different. All the cells are different. But because it's how we've been conditioned to look at things, it's why the stories of misunderstanding and whatever that are told are so important to look at, but they're glossed over. So a story of misunderstanding that's often told is the one of germs. So going back to a time when no one knew about germs and people carrying poses to avoid disease and whatever. But it's those stories become anecdotal and glib. You want to really start to think, oh my goodness, if actually what I am isn't a body and a mind, but something that knows that, what the heck does that mean? Then that's like my entire world encapsulated in those couple of sentences. That's what I'd spend my time doing. Why? Why? I mean, why on earth would anybody do that other than being a little bit crazy? Because I see every day the implications of the misunderstanding. Now, if you go back to the time of people not knowing about germs, you'd have had doctors wiping clean surgical instruments on their jackets. You'd have had people debating which kind of flour to go into London with so they didn't catch a virus. You'd have all sorts of madness as a result of not knowing how something worked. And that's what I'm pointing to. It's just that I'm pointing to the madness in a way that perhaps other people are either reticent to, because it just sounds a little bit barking crazy, or haven't seen, or whatever. I don't know. I'd be guessing. But that's what I'm pointing to, a misunderstanding of such cataclysmic proportion that it's wreaking havoc and mayhem in what we call our world. That's what I'm pointing at.
So my next question feels like so what's the solution, Dave? You.
Yeah, that's right. Just me. Well, look. For somebody who's listening to this, we might strike one. It might be two or whatever. Something will twig in this. Like every human has it, right? It's like the echo of, and I know it's perhaps an annoying phrase, but the echo of who you truly are is kind of like ticking like a homing beacon in the back of your mind. And that's certainly, been the experience here. That beacon just won't go off. It just won't switch off. And occasionally I'd wished it would just switch off. And I could go, oh yeah, there's a superpower, you might call it God or spirit or life or energy. And then there's an us that's solid and you can rely on that superpower and whatever. And in a sense, that's true. It's true as far as it goes. It just doesn't go far enough. It just doesn't match to experience. And that's what kept me going on the inquiry. It's just like, yeah, but I love the story. It's romantic. It's beautiful. The sense of a separate Dave in the world loves it because it means Dave can be powerful and knowledgeable. And it's just like, yeah, but it doesn't work out like that. And I get people to do like really, really simple things like, like keep a note of your day of what you thought you were going to do and what actually happened, and then try and work out who's driving the bus. Like, really, honestly.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've just had a really weird and wonderful experience around that. So I'm going to Italy next week. That which is taking me to.
Don't worry about that. Just look. So much of what I've said, I'll have been referencing the body. I say things like, I had an experience. Well, really, honestly, but it doesn't matter. We don't want to get caught up in trying to be like the non-dual police and reframing how we use the I or whatever. We want to come back to experience and interrogate that when it matters. A lot of the time, it doesn't matter. We're chatting and it's all cool.
So yesterday, yeah. So I'm going to Italy next week, and I'd read the dates of when I thought I was supposed to be there. And it turns out that I booked my flight for the 3rd of October because I saw that I just had created in my head that it was from the 4th until the 8th. And it turns out only yesterday did I realize everybody's landing on the 4th. And I'm like, well, everybody's wrong. No. It's the third, right? So everybody else is wrong. But what was funny about all of this was that Ryanair initially changed the date of the booking. So, I mean, the time of the booking. So originally I was going to get there at 12 or 2 in the afternoon, and they changed that flight to getting there for 6, by which point it would have been too late for me to have got the lift that I effectively was going to get. But the funny thing is that was the 3rd. So I was going to get in day early anyway. So I changed that flight thinking I was supposed to get in on the 3rd, and got a Vueling flight, and booked it, only to realize I booked it for the 3rd of September, not the 3rd of October.
Excellent.
Anyway, the day before I was supposed to go, I was like, oh my God, I've booked for the 3rd of September. I need to book it on the 3rd of October. Only to then find out that I'm not supposed to be there until the 4th. So I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, fine, okay. Interestingly enough, about a couple of like 10 days ago, I was supposed to go. I kind of arranged to go to Geneva with a woman I've met recently, and we were going to go to the UN, but it's not going to happen now. And I decided I didn't want to go anyway. I phoned so I was supposed to get a refund from Airbnb, and basically it looked like I was supposed to get 100% refund. And Airbnb gave me back, but it wasn't 100%. So I was like, okay, I'm going to phone them and see what's up. So it turns out that they've got some sort of cancellation policy that only they know about. They don't make it very obvious when you're booking that if you don't cancel between 48 hours, they're going to charge you something for that cancellation, even though the owner of the house has 100% cancellation policy. So I should have got the entire refund back. Anyway, I made a bit of a stink about it. They gave me a coupon, 88 euros. So I'm sitting there going, I don't need this really. I mean, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to go somewhere. So then it dawned on me this morning, oh, I've got an extra night in Italy. There we go, I've just used the coupon. So the whole thing, it just really it just really hit me this morning. It's like, I didn't do any of like this. It's almost like I had, someone that organizes your holidays for you. Yeah. I mean, dare I say, it's almost like there's a greater intelligence or something at work, But I think we have to be careful with that, right? Because, and this is where I'm kind of like at cross purposes with some of the teaching that's going on, because there is this sort of sense of, oh, there's a greater intelligence at work, so it'll be okay for me. It's like a reinforcement of the pretendness of the illusion. So now there's something that me, little important David here,
can rely on. I can now rely on God. Oh, God's there for me. Da 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 da. It's all that stuff, right? That's bunkum too, is what I'm saying. Like you don't want to pay any attention, because that's like a new age. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's a lovely romantic idea, brilliant if you want to sell a book or whatever. It's brilliant. It just ain't true, as far as I see it. Because I come back to, can I rely on this thing that conversationally and whatever I'll have referenced on your podcast or whatever as being permanent? No, I can't report that. So it's very difficult to argue the case for improving something that ain't there all the time.
I love that.
How would you do that then? Right? It isn't there all the time. Let's see if we can make it better. Hang on, it isn't there all the time. That's like a proper form of insanity, isn't it? So no wonder we're up poo creek when we're looking at the level of something that comes and goes. Surely, to goodness, we'd be better looking at that which remains and interrogating that. So back to your original question prior to the story. So what's to be done? It's this inquiry that's to be done. Now, there may be other ways. I don't know. I'm not purporting or reporting to say this is the only way. It's the best way I've found. So I can report that. I can share that for people. And I've been playing this game for a while.
So what's changed for you? Has anything changed for you?
Well, why I'm reticent to, I mean, yes, but I'm reticent to answer that. Why? Because now I'm back in the trap of what's in it for me, pointing to the body, the ego. So here's another, let's just chuck another misunderstanding out of the window. People have bought into the idea that as individuals or apparent individuals, we individually have an ego. No, we don't. Ego is the sense of separate self. There is an ego. Not we all have them. And why can I say not that we all have them? Remember, I can report that which I would call me, body, mind, isn't always here. So how can it have properties if it isn't always here? How can I report that something that's temporary owns something? How can it? It's temporary. That would make no sense at all. It isn't always there. Sure, it's part of experience, but it isn't permanent any more than a cloud is permanent within the sky or a wave is permanent within the ocean. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this isn't a pervasive misunderstanding. It's the pervasive misunderstanding as far as I can see. But I can't report things that suggest its permanence when it has no permanence. So I come back to weight loss. I come back to mental health. How can something that isn't permanent be mentally unhealthy? How the hell would that work then? It can't, can it?
No, it can't.
How can something that isn't solid and always there be inherently, or for that matter, how can something that's solid and isn't always there be inherently healthy? It can't be that either. So as much as it's innocent and well meant to say to somebody, hey, you're not broken, everything you need is inside, all of which I've done, by the way. I'm not going, oh, wow, just look, like all of which I've done. Check my social posts, you'll find it. But how can you claim that property of something that's illusionary by nature? How the heck can you do that? You can't. That would be properly crazy, wouldn't it? To assign properties to something that isn't there all the time, as if it were there all the time, is now properly crazy. So we've got to throw it out and inquire again. The sense of personhood comes and goes within experience. So claiming solid attributes about that person now makes no sense because it isn't there all the time. And actually, if you note, when it comes and goes, doesn't it come and go in different forms as well? Don't you find your self, small s, during the course of the day, being joyful one moment, an arsehole the next, full of peace the next, full of rage the next? Isn't that experience? So this thing that we're purporting to be solid and basing our theorems of life and society around is starting to look extraordinarily flaky. And that's very, 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 very good news. Because lots of our challenges are based around that. Like, wow.
So actually, the challenge that we're actually all up against is seeing ourselves as permanent.
Yeah, believing there's a permanent separate self. Yeah, rather than sharing one being, for example, being an alternative.
But it's moved on from the challenges that we don't see, that what we're creating, the feelings are coming from our thinking.
It's still a red herring.
Yes, and what now the third sort of major inquiry has come to is actually moved beyond that, which is just as you said, the challenge that we're actually all up against is thinking that we're actually permanent.
Yeah. So the challenge I'm holding out to every people helper is to undertake their own inquiry and ask themselves whether it still makes sense to offer help to something that's impermanent.
So have you stopped?
Well, I'm doing this, so you could argue yes and no.
Have you stopped coaching?
All of what I'm doing, whether it's work or whatever categories we want to put it, is based around this direct inquiry. All of it, 100%. So I'm working with individuals, putting programs together, talking about it, writing about it, because it's the most significant thing I've ever seen. So it makes sense to do that. I'm not saying it's ended, but it makes sense right now to do that. It also makes sense to speak up about encouraging people to look at whether things that hold the concept of person in place is a good plan. And I know that people will say, yeah, but you need to meet people where they are, etc. Yes and no, but I'm in the no camp of that very much. So let me give you an example. If I saw you struggling, let's say, this is going to be a bizarre example, right? But let's say you're playing with your little one and in a kid's paddling pool that's been emptied out for the autumn and it had been full of water, but somehow you've fallen over, you've bumped your head and you're convinced you're drowning. Right? The kindest thing to do isn't to teach you to swim better. It's to point out there's no water. Now, the argument from the personal development world, particularly if you like from a marketing perspective, is yeah, but Marina thinks she's drowning. So we want to reach out to her to where she is. It's like, no, there's no water. We just need to tell her that. And at some point, she's going to pick up, there's no water. No. We know, I get that, Dave, but temporarily we need to make sure that her front crawl is superb. Guys, there's no water. She ain't drowning. That person isn't struggling because they're not a person. I just feel personally that's kinder. Now, I'm not saying I would necessarily deliver it in that manner. Hey, guess what? You're not a person. Have a good day now. That might not be. So let's have some sort of sense of, what might occur. But to get people to look at their own experience and look at the impermanence is gold. It really is. And I know because I've had those conversations with people struggling. to get them to look at that. You're always struggling. Can you report that? No. Can you report that you come and go? You have an experience of losing yourself? Yes, I can report that. Okay.
Well, so it feels to me that we're kind of complete here. If someone has listened to this and has got curious about what we've been sharing or you've been sharing, and I've been kind of attempting to grasp it, how can they connect with you?
You can connect with me on most of my output is on LinkedIn at the moment. I'm at Dave Kibby wherever, but most of my output is on LinkedIn, a little bit on Facebook, but I don't know why I'm just completely drawn to LinkedIn at the moment. Or they can email me, davekibby@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Dave. It's been a pleasure to have you on today. And I look forward to hearing your rants in the future.
Thank you.
And there you have it, another wonderful episode of The Joy of Being. If you loved what you heard here today and it's been helpful, why not subscribe or share the podcast with others? And if you're curious as to how you can experience more joy in your life and feel carefree, then I invite you to download your Joy Catalyst scorecard at www.marinapearson.com/scorecard, which will help you identify the joy gaps and what you can do to fill them. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. So until next week's episode, remember, you are the joy you seek.